Hello world, this ChatGPT scam wants to hack you, 3 US government agencies have been hacked in the last 2 weeks, and why Signal could be banned in the UK. That's all coming up in today's roundup of cybersecurity tech news. ChatGPT is the fastest growing consumer application in history, reaching 100 million monthly active users in just 2 months. But with the service often unavailable thanks to the insane levels of demand and the recent introduction of a paid option, bad actors are pouncing on the opportunity to make some money of their own. Facebook is being flooded with ads for fake ChatGPT services, and it was actually my girlfriend who stumbled across this particular one. When she told me she'd just seen a ChatGPT ad on Facebook, something just didn't seem right. Why would a service that's been receiving so much free publicity be running Facebook ads? The post promises access to pre-made ChatGPT accounts, which they literally paste usernames and passwords for. This goes beyond suspicious, even for a scam, and just seems strange. Free $50 OpenAI credit, they say, before their diabolical sales pitch that just doesn't make any sense. GPT chat tool is an emerging star in the technology village in general. Like I say, it doesn't make any sense. Ironically, these bad actors should have taken up their own advice and had ChatGPT write this ad for them. Maybe then they would have ended up with something at least slightly intelligible. The ad has an accompanying video, which links to gptaichats.com. However, that domain has been flagged as malicious, so in their post, the bad actors point to a different domain instead. If you head over to their site, you'll find it's pretty much a carbon copy of the genuine OpenAI website. The main difference being that instead of a try ChatGPT button that you'd see on the genuine site, we have a download button. This gives us a setup exe that's over 300 megabytes in size. However, if we run this through hexdump, we can clearly see that the vast majority of this file is just the same bytes repeated over and over, artificially increasing the size of the executable to make it seem more legit. In reality, what promises to be a locally running version of ChatGPT is instead the nasty info-stealing Trojan, LumaStealer, which itself is only a couple hundred kilobytes in size. Primarily sold on hacking forums, LumaStealer will exfiltrate crypto wallets and credentials saved in your browser. This whole campaign has been documented by researchers at Cybel, who also found that Android apps impersonating ChatGPT had made their way into the Play Store. These apps secretly subscribe you to premium SMS services, siphoning off your money in the background. Luckily, those apps have since been deleted, though the Facebook campaign is ongoing. When I first stumbled across it, there were a load of comments ripping this scam apart, but when I came back to it a few hours later, they had all been deleted, so it seems that this campaign is still in full swing. It's been a bad couple of weeks for US government agencies. Firstly, there's been a rather disturbing FBI hack. Secondly, sensitive Department of Defense emails have been exposed. And thirdly, the US Marshal Service has suffered a ransomware attack. Let's run through them all. When it comes to the FBI hack, they've suffered what's being described as a cybersecurity incident on their network. Now, when something is labelled a cybersecurity incident, you know the story is going to be pretty vague on details, and this is no exception. However, we do know that the incident involved an FBI computer system used in investigations of images of child exploitation. So the fact that these systems were even able to be breached raises some pretty serious questions about whether the FBI cut corners on their security. But this question, along with how the hack was even perpetrated, and more importantly why, are going unanswered, well, at least for now, with the FBI just saying they're aware of the incident and are investigating it. But if we're going to speculate, it could be the case that a computer the FBI seized during an investigation was infected with malware, and that this somehow spread to the FBI systems, or maybe the FBI just hadn't properly secured their network, enabling a more sophisticated hack specifically targeting the FBI's pedo division. Less than a week after this FBI hack, there was an embarrassing disaster over at the Department of Defense, because one of their internal email servers was found to be exposed to the open internet without any kind of password protection. The server contained sensitive information dating back years, and to give you a flavour of just how bad this was, TechCrunch investigated and found highly sensitive data on federal employees seeking security clearance. And that'll just be the tip of the iceberg, because this blunder involved 3 terabytes of information. It's the kind of dump that would definitely become the data breach of the year if it was leaked by a bad actor. But luckily for the DoD, the server, which according to Shodan was publicly available for 2 weeks, was discovered by a white hat who tipped off the DoD, enabling them to correct the misconfigured email server which was hosted on Microsoft's Azure for Government. And just a few days ago, we heard of yet another breach affecting a US government agency. This time, it was the turn of the Department of Justice, in particular, the US Marshal Service. When they're not responding to cyber attacks, these guys are responsible for hunting down fugitives and running the Federal Witness Protection Program, and they've just suffered a ransomware attack. The attack affected a standalone US Marshal Service system. Exactly what they mean by standalone isn't clear, and this, unfortunately, is yet another case of details being pretty thin, though we do know that the breach affected law enforcement sensitive information pertaining to the subjects of Marshal Service investigations. Though we don't know which ransomware group is behind it, but I would imagine we can expect to learn more about this breach and exactly how bad it is in the next week or so, when the miscreants behind it publicly claim responsibility and threaten to publicly expose everything they have. The UK government is trying to undermine end-to-end encryption, and of course they're doing it under the guise of protecting the children. If the proposed array of laws pass, the president of Signal has said the organisation would absolutely 100% walk, which would mean Signal disappearing from UK app stores and then potentially having to IP geo-block the entire country. At the root of this is the Online Safety Bill, introduced by our former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, known locally as Bojo. The bill contains a controversial section which has become known as the Spy Clause. This would require messaging apps like Signal to scan every privately sent message for instances of child abuse material. To non-technically literate people, I'm sure this sounds reasonable, but not only would this effectively constitute mass surveillance, but it would also mean weakening end-to-end encryption, providing a backdoor into messaging apps that could potentially be abused by hackers. However, the UK government is adamant that the Online Safety Bill does not represent a ban on end-to-end encryption. Their argument presumably rests on the idea that if messages are scanned on a phone prior to being communicated, then maybe it could be argued that this doesn't technically subvert end-to-end encryption, though it definitely undermines the spirit of it. And this has been enough to set comment sections alight pretty much anywhere you find a discussion of this new bill. Aside from the issue of creating a backdoor that hackers could abuse, there's also the fun problem of government overreach. Can we be sure that the scope of material that messages will be scanned for won't slowly increase over time? And is it a good idea to provide future governments with the infrastructure that would be required to implement surveillance for arbitrary content? Let's not forget, scanning messages in this way has been tried before. In 2021, Apple announced that they would scan all photos uploaded to iCloud for instances of abuse. In fairness to Apple, they did at least try to do it in the most privacy-conscious way possible. However, it didn't matter. Privacy as a concept is incompatible with what is effectively mass surveillance, and the massive public backlash resulted in Apple killing the idea before it even saw the light of day. On page 229 of the almost 300-page long bill, it states that if a company fails to comply, it'll cost them £18 million or 10% of their global revenue, whatever's greater. In addition to Signal's denouncement of this new bill, I was surprised and heartened to see that even Meta-owned WhatsApp has also said that they won't lower security for any government. The UK government says it's not a choice between privacy or child safety. We can and we must have both. This is of course a dangerous lie that cloaks the inevitable compromises associated with diminishing in any way the security of messaging apps. And make no mistake, if this does pass through Parliament, it would embolden the governments of other nations to enact similar statutes. This video was made possible by Linode, who are giving you a $100 60-day credit just for signing up. Linode is essentially your Swiss Army knife for cloud computing. If it runs on Linux, it'll run on Linode. One great feature of Linode is their app marketplace, which makes it super easy to spin up servers with pre-configured software. Use Linode's Kali Linux app to quickly spin up a fresh instance of Kali. The installer makes it easy to configure the basics, like VNC passwords, whether you want a desktop environment, and so on. Linode can run almost anything by providing all the tools a developer really needs at competitive prices. Use the link in the description now to claim your free $100. As always, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.